I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
But imagine if you were faced with, for example, faced with the notion of possibly losing your life because you voted. You may just say, I'm not going to do it.
Welcome back to FAQ the Madness. We respectfully exercise our First Amendment right to publish interactions with government officials through the unbiased view of a camera. Let's jump into another rep.
Recording.
It is election time. We're like, 20 days away from elections. And I don't really consider myself that much of a politicking person, a political type person. I mean, I have been around for a number of elections when I was in the Air Force. Ironically enough, so I went in 1989. So I was turning 19 the year of an election, if I remember correctly. But I do remember as a young airman buzz about which party you should vote for. Now, and I'm talking about as a young, impressionable airman, where your supervisors and your NCOIC of the lab, and basically anybody who was talking, were very influential in the way that I thought. So I say that only to point out the fact that there are so many different ways that we can be influenced, not only on our own thoughts and ideology and what our own standards are, if you will, but what we watch, what we look at. So I consume a whole lot of content, and the reason why I do so is because I'm kind of getting around to figuring out how these things affect me, what my interests are, and as a person who occasionally creates content, I also want to see what's going on in the world around me. So I was watching an individual, Jericho Green. I had never heard of him before. He has some 369,000 subscribers. He happens to be, I don't know if he's from San Diego or if he just lives in San Diego. I think if I remember correctly, he was in the Navy. So it's reasonable to have gone to San Diego and maybe ended up living there. My mother was also stationed there, which is why I graduated in San Diego. And I don't really know a whole lot about him, so it's not as if I'm opposed to anything that he says. I take different things that people say with a grain of salt, right? And I try to see if I can figure things out. And he does say something interesting in this video that we're going to watch. The title being, "How do we have billions for other countries and next to nothing for American hurricane survivors?"
Well, good damn morning, Americans. Jericho Green here with you once again. Give me a follow on X at Green_Jericho, and like and subscribe to my new channel, Green's House. Big changes coming to my YouTube channel. Can't wait. Very excited. Buckle your seatbelts. It's gonna be fun. So, a question. Oftentimes when I can't figure things out, I come to you people. You people! I come to you to help me find the answers to these questions that are racking my brain. Are you the man who wrecked the buffet at the Herald Club this morning? Anyway, real quick, not going to take a lot of your time. Why the fuck do we have billions upon billions, or as Trump would say, billions upon billions of dollars to send outside of this country, but when a natural disaster hits, like the hurricanes, Hurricane Helene, they got another one named Morton or something like that that's on the way, that's supposed to be almost category 6. I've never even heard of that.
So you guys will remember that it was purported to be huge, and I think they were calling it, similar to what he just said, almost a category 6, which none of us has probably heard of, but it was slated to be that big. Now, I don't know. I have a friend who talked about what happened to his house, and I don't know if I'm as aware of what happened through that area or beyond as I was or became aware of Helene, because there's still things going on between us, I think, Asheville, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And we have a number of people in a community or the community who have experienced or been helping in those kind of things. So, prayers are still needed out there, but it seems as though he wasn't quite aware. He even called it a wrong name. But so we'll go back.
But Mayorkas came out and said that FEMA does not have the funds to take care of the people who are affected by these storms, by these hurricanes. So why do we have the billions and billions and billions of dollars to send to other countries, but when it comes to our own people, they're tapping their pockets? Oh, hey man, damn, American taxpayers, damn, I spent your money. I spent your money on somebody else. Damn, let me check. Oh shit, no, fresh out, American taxpayer. You know what? Our federal government is like the biggest crackhead in the world. You gave that crackhead $5 to go down to the store and grab something for you. I'm sorry, in Biden's economy, you gave that crackhead $1,000 to go buy a couple things from the grocery store, and they gave the money away to the crack dealer and bought crack with it instead. But I need that. I'm hungry. I need that food, crackhead. I need those FEMA funds, crackhead. My fucking house just washed away.
So I think you get the point of what it is that he is saying. If you think about it, or at least from my perspective, the way I thought about it, I think it's kind of oversimplified what he's saying. First of all, he says billions and billions of dollars to other countries. And I think in order for me to understand what I even think about that, you have to kind of understand what he really is talking about. When he says billions of billions, or when he is pondering whether it's billions of billions, like I did, are we talking annually, monthly, daily? So, I mean, it's not quite cut and dry what the budget, the spending on foreign aid, the total foreign aid budget even is in the first place, right? Any allocation that exists for foreign aid, we'd have to kind of know how it's distributed, and to what countries, and what is the purpose. The primary goal of that foreign aid is for what? Is it humanitarian assistance, economic development, war, which we all probably are aware of, is occurring? But those are the things, I think, that the questions that would need to be answered on the surface. Not just think we give all of this money to these countries for no damn apparent reason, and then the hurricane victims get nothing, right? So along those same lines, you have to consider the spending that occurs or would occur for hurricane relief. Now, think about it this way. I mean, we anticipate hurricanes coming and going in different areas, the Gulf of Mexico, onto the Florida side, whatever, and any of those surrounding areas. Basically every year there's a season for it, along with tornadoes, maybe earthquakes, like in Japan there's earthquakes, etc. But what if none came at all? I mean, what would happen to those funds in the first place? Where would they go? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. If you do, then, put it in the comments or something. But similarly, the federal disaster relief funding, how much funding has been allocated for hurricane relief in recent years? Not just recent years, but I mean, maybe for this year, but recent years and the past, because it probably would establish what funds would be available for the current year. How those funds are distributed. Where does the funding go? Is it for infrastructure repair, individual assistance, emergency response, etc.? Right? And I think I've heard also that the state for which is affected by whatever disaster has to alert the federal government that something is going on, right? Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying that his question is not fair or reasonable. I'm just saying that I think it's oversimplified as he goes on and says, we give billions and billions away to foreign countries, but we don't have enough to even take care of our own in America. I will put the link in the description. You can check out Jericho Green. You know, it's a brother checking out things and kind of giving it with no holds barred. So check him out, Jericho Green. And he has some other channels which you can figure out where those are as well. So as it stands, let's see where we would go. I have some reliable sources that you can use to fact check information. So I don't know how often we go about actually fact checking things when we find something. Like, do we go and say, I wonder where, I think that the government is spending billions and billions of dollars, and then you just stop there. I think you would actually try to figure it out. Or if you hear about the government spending billions and billions of dollars, but there's no funds available for our own people, then you would probably fact check it. So I kind of looked at a couple of different ones. Let's see if we can do this. CRS reports. Now, the Congressional Research Services, as mentioned earlier, the CRS provides nonpartisan analysis and information on government spending. You can see here that you can search for reports, and they have a search tool. So I don't know if I already tried to do it, but let's just say hurricane funding. So when you type in hurricane funding, for example, there are a number of different things. It says May 16, 2018 was the first thing, but there's a number of different things. And who knows exactly what they are. You would obviously have to spend some time and try to figure out exactly what you're looking for, but it's a place where you can look for, as a start. Now, FEMA has its own website, and I'm sure it's kind of, right now it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's probably current to what's going on now. And I'm sure you can answer a lot of questions specifically on how you would go about getting any funding that is available to them. Obviously, they have their pictures on there, but they have their own website, which you can find information. And I don't know if they have a place that talks about what monies they've spent or what monies are allocated. Let's see. Check your disaster application, get ready for disasters, buy flood insurance, know your flood risks, sign up for training, etc., etc., etc. Now, keep in mind, none of us are saying that, or I'm not saying that government on some level sometimes is slow, maybe not the most efficiently run in the localities that they are, which by the way makes me consider something we're going to talk about a little bit later about how our vote counts as it relates to local things versus the big picture, which is our presidential election, for example. The other thing that we have, which is, and I've never heard of this, and I'm actually interested in kind of digging a little bit further into this particular website. It's called Government Accountability Office. Now, the GAO is an independent agency that audits the federal government. They may have reports on disaster relief, spending, and foreign aid, for example. So they would be able to let us know distinctly, or even more succinctly, I think that's the word I'm looking for, how the spending compares. That spending that we have for foreign aid and for FEMA, for example, or for disasters. So I actually want to check that out too, because I got to it and I didn't have time to kind of completely go into it. And I did this, like I said, I was prompted to look into these things after I saw Jericho Green's video. And, I don't really know if he has a mission, so to speak, but I'm sure he would be pleased to know that something that he surmised or thought about kind of elicited the type of response which I had, which is to kind of research things. So I would say between those three resources, you should probably be able to get your answer. And if it's not being taken care of, does it just happen? Who's responsible? I think that's the question I want to know. Who is responsible for it not being taken care of? From the highest to the lowest. When I say the lowest, I mean closest to the ground. Logistics. Logistics is a big part of it, right? How do you get things to where it needs to? How do you get stuff to be able to scratch the itch? So, anyway, okay. If we're not spending our money responsibly abroad, when we should be, especially when we're talking about, conflicts here and there, and then we have something happen in America and we don't take care of it, then obviously that's problematic. So, all right, so that is that. So this particular guy, I don't know if anybody is aware of this guy. His name is Roland S. Martin. Again, you can check out I will put the link for his channel in the description. After I've uploaded this and done any edits that I would need to, you'll be able to check it out. But he was live for about 2 hours and 38 minutes. He had interviewed Kamala Harris. So obviously, given the fact that we're near an election, I thought it was kind of cool. So I started listening. So
playing racial politics, white folks do that. Yeah, actually had turned the mic off. That was Congresswoman Maxine Waters' call. I got to call it back. They play racial politics all the time, and the reality is they need to be challenged as well on what the hell their numbers look like. Chris Toller, he's the director of the Black Voter Project, co-founder of Black Insights Research, joins me now from Sacramento. And again, all of these people, all of these folks, Chris, they going on and on and on, and now everybody and their mama want to analyze the black vote. Okay, and then what all these networks are doing are sending these silly ass reporters out there to interview brothers playing basketball. But here's what they never ask, Chris. They never first say, "Are you registered?" Then they never asked, if you are registered, when's the last time you voted? So
now, first of all, I think that is what caught my attention, and to boot, that is what goes to show you that these type of things matters. What he's talking about is the very piece of mail that I just told you that I received talks about the fact that I voted previously. Now, obviously, there's going to be some record of my ethnicity, and they may have sent it to everybody. Don't get me wrong, but as a black man who I am definitely not going to not vote. You can call me undecided or whatever you want to call me. Whether or not I vote for Kamala Harris or Trump, the one thing that I'm not going to do is not vote. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think that the history of voters in general speaks for what you can expect them to do and the effect that they're going to have as well. And I think this is what he alludes to.
then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, NBC, we went out and talked to a group of black men, and all of them are voting for Trump. When Don Lemon was walking around talking to people, and all networks have done that, but they don't ask that important question. First, are you registered? Two, do you vote? And everybody and their mama now got an opinion on black men, and none of them are actually looking at data And the last point here, Chris, before I go to you, they just take whatever poll white mainstream media puts out and just take it as fact. According to this poll, Donald Trump is getting 26% of the black vote. 2 out of 5 black men are going to vote for Donald Trump. And I'm like, not now one black poll has showed any of that.
I have been getting a lot of, I mean, we're going to call them scam calls because I have a different perception and perspective of telemarketer calls now. 1, because of my mother's situation, her being scammed. 2, because I get them all the time. But I also intermingled with those. I mean, they're getting very creative. It's almost always the same area code that you are in. So a lot of times I was answering the call because I thought it might be like the VA hospital, for example, or I had done something, given my card out to somebody on the golf course or something like that, and I didn't recognize the number and I was expecting a call maybe, and so I would answer. But now, basically, I have stopped answering any call that doesn't identify themselves as, family or whatever, that's not in my list. Not because I'm afraid, but simply because I don't want to be bothered. But the reason why I mention that is because there used to be a time, and not to say that black people are this way, but there was a joke that said, when
white people's power goes off, they panic.
I'm not
when black people's power goes off, they plan it.
What I'm going to say is that there used to be a time where I had a lot of debt. I owed a lot of creditors, and I never answered my phone. And nowadays, when people are polling you, they call you and ask if you would be interested in taking a poll. Well, if you're not answering your phone, then you're not even privy to the poll, and there's no other way for them to get the information. So how worthy or accurate are these polls in the first place? Like you said, I don't know how polls are happening routinely normally, but if you want to know about how, for example, a black man is going to vote, then maybe you should poll them in the places that they are, like a barbershop, for example, or church or whatever. But the club, hell, maybe you should go see them in the club. No, anyway, but I think he makes a valid point. I'm not, if there is a poll to be had or to be given to me, I'm not going to hear it or take it because I'm not answering the phone. I'm playing with them in the first place because I think they're stupid. Yeah.
Nothing, Roland. Thanks again for having me on. I think that, just to reiterate this point, the narrative about black men voting for Trump has been blown out of proportion ever since Biden was the nominee. Even back then, the number of black men supporting Trump was not any higher than in 2020. And the data that I have suggests that it's actually dropped since Harris took over the ticket. And so we're seeing less black men saying that they're going to vote for Trump. And we actually are looking, as you said, at people that are actually going to vote rather than those that are just being polled. Then you look at the black subsample where they are just trying to get people in, right? They don't have any history or real record of polling black folk. And so they end up with a good percent of even their likely voter sample is made up of people who haven't voted, didn't even vote in 2020.
Interesting. Again, I am learning just from this piece of mail. I mean, it's not that you can't intuitively see that the history of whoever you're polling matters. And if you just randomly poll people that don't have a history, then it doesn't matter as well. And there's a deeper level of why it is that I'm interested in this whole entire thing. Again, it goes back to what my wife and I were talking about. I want to get it out. It's itching my soul. Let's get to some of the interview that he does with Vice President Kamala Harris.
Madam Vice President.
Wrong
Glad to have you here. Ready to bring the funk?
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Let's get right to it. So right
Okay.
before I walked out there, someone posted a clip, and usually the clip, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do anything specifically for African Americans. But folk don't talk about what you said right before when you said that public policy that benefits Black folks, it benefits everybody else.
Right.
Even when we look at historically, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, it actually didn't just impact African Americans, it impacted everyone else. But talk about that, because so many people have only clipped that one part without understanding the public policy implications.
That's too bad. That's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. Right. So you know that, I mean, going back even before, but Dr. King was very clear, right? If you have certain policies that recognize, one, that not everybody starts out on the same base. If you have public policy, and I'm talking about economic public policy specifically at this point, but if you have public policy that recognizes historical barriers, and what we need to do then to overcome, first speak truth about them and then overcome them, that in the process of doing that, not only are you directly dealing with the injustices and the legal and procedural barriers that have been focused on Black folks, but by eliminating those barriers, everyone actually benefits, right?
Yeah, I think on some level, what she is saying is something that I've intimated, even when I was discussing different things with Jillian specific when we had a show together. I am not into victimology on any level. Be victimization, victimology, whatever you want to call it, whereby I feel like, I am doomed to have these set of circumstances happen to me because of the color of my skin or the circumstances in which I was raised. On many, many levels, the sacrifices that my mother as a single parent made in order to ensure that I don't talk like a fool or act like a fool, even though there were times in my life that I did act like a fool. But at the end of the day, that I recognize and understand what it is that I should be and do as a man first, a Black man second, to contribute to society, is the way that I think. But the history of it all prior to me does matter, and how my government, the people who I surround myself with, that is a community, a neighborhood, etc., the way that we operate to keep those things from happening continuously matter. I don't like the notion that there's this war looming and it's a race war. I don't subscribe to that notion at all. And for it to be put upon me, for example, that I should or should not vote a certain way because one, the color of my skin, that puts a lot of pressure on a person. I think when I was thinking about this, I was like, man, it is kind of a daunting task to think about, how am I going to vote and how am I going to look if I vote a certain way? So I don't even really think of it in that light. I really don't.
As president, what I have named an opportunity economy that taps into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people, and then addresses those in a way that recognizes, unlike my opponent who was handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, not everyone has access to those kinds of resources. But when you give people access to those resources, they thrive and we all benefit. Opportunity economy. That's why I say I'm going to make sure that we give first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance. Because again, we know that when you look at the history of how Black folks have been denied the opportunity for home ownership, be it redlining or what we know has still been happening around a bias in home appraisals, that it is a barrier to achieving intergenerational success. But when we address it by doing things like helping folks get their foot in the door with a down payment assistance, they will have the ability to be on that track of intergenerational wealth building.
I still am interested, and I had some interest in what they call redlining. She's kind of alluding to it, where it talks about housing, and I'm not sure if this applies to land as well. But I discovered recently, because of my family dealings or whatever, that my grandfather and his siblings, for a very, very long time ago, that they co-opted to own land in Georgia. And my grandfather was a miser. He was around during the time when people did those kind of things, where they hoarded bonds and land and money and all those kind of things. Not only because that was the time that was required for you to do that, or at least that people did that. My wife's mother was kind of old. She's young as 8. They lived during that time when the Depression was there, etc. But I know for a fact that they had other challenges when it comes to owning property and land.
You know those stories about a black family is trying to get their home appraised. They want to get a second mortgage. They want to sell the house, whatever. And they bring in the appraiser. The appraiser looks around, looks at the family pictures, and appraises it for less than it's worth. The family knows that. They're not stupid.
The black folks got to remove photos.
So
books,
then they
DVDs,
remove photos and everything else, right? They remove
all the blackness.
all of that. And then they ask a white family that's a friend of theirs, come in, they put up their pictures, and the house gets appraised for more. Racial bias. We're taking that on for the first time. And as president, to your point about supply, I'm going to create tax incentives for home builders and developers to build 3 million new housing units by the end of my first term, because a big part of jacking up the prices has been the supply is not meeting demand, so the prices are higher.
There is a graph that he shows about the decrease in the supply of houses, which has caused the price to go up, supply and demand type things, which I think is what she's trying to address. Now, I am personally interested, having heard this, for example, I would like to see, is it even possible to build 3 million homes in 4 years? I don't even know if that's possible or not, but it seems like an ambitious ass goal. And what would it do if they can show it? I mean, I think I would be all for it. I happen to be, it may just be in my blood. I like property. I like land. I like houses. I don't have the wherewithal to buy something that's completely dilapidated and then go through and fix it and then flip it. I'm not that guy. But I think that there are things that can be done with land, for example, that will help and property that will help to build generational health. If you take that away from somebody, then that's problematic. So I think that's kind of a plus in my mind for her. But I don't even know if it's possible to do 3 million homes in that. That seems like a lot. All right. So this is Jericho Green, and the name of it is Obama chastises black men for not supporting Kamala Harris. The nerve. Okay. Once again, as I said before, I believe Jericho Green is very entertaining, and it's not that I disagree with him, because the previous video that I looked at, like I told you, elicited a response that caused me to want to look for more information. So if that is a goal of his, then he's accomplished it, and I can continue listening to him and not feel like he's browbeating me for something. And now in this case, he does have an interesting take about what Obama said.
Because she's done nothing. Because she is nothing. Because her head is full of nothing.
He's talking about Kamala Harris not having a record of, man, I did not mean to put you in that light. Let me just put this right here. I got somebody, I guess, can you clip that? That wasn't the best place to stop. I'm going to go to where Obama is talking. Man, he looks like he might have aged a little bit.
Check it out. I'll let you see it yourself. Go ahead, Barry. Tell the black men, how disappointed in them you are.
I'm going to go ahead and just say,
I agree.
Speak some truth, if you don't mind.
Uh-oh.
Because my understanding, based on reports I'm getting from campaigns and communities,
on the grapevine,
is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities.
You pieces of shit.
Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
The brothers.
So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all.
The brothers. See, you can't talk to black folks the same way you talk to white folks. You got to use that language. You got to say it's more pronounced with the brothers.
So now I am not saying that, I mean, he knows what he's talking about. And I'm just going to put it this way. If I'm in court or, doing a live, for example, I mean, I have the ability and propensity to speak a certain way. I do, naturally. But I used to frequent a function whereby we would go in, me and a bunch of other black guys, and we'd play dominoes and spades. And we all talked a certain way. So sometimes the company that you keep welcomes a certain way of speaking with each other. I mean, I don't know how to explain it any other way. And I am absolutely confident that Jericho Green knows this, but he holds it against this individual, that being Barack Obama, because he's speaking a certain way. But when you speak to an audience, when you speak with people, shouldn't you connect with them on the level that you can? I don't think that he's connecting this way because he's just trying to do something. I think that he does that naturally. We've seen little clips jokingly of Barack Obama. I think it was Peel, the Peel guy. I can't think of the other guy that they're a group. Something in Peel, where he would be shaking people's hands, and then when he gets to a black person, he gives them like a dap and a hug. It's a joke, but we get it for a reason. And I'm certain Jericho Green knows this. So
never forget about that, because that's all we got.
Because Barack Obama talks like this at home. You know what I'm saying? He don't say black man, he says the brothers and sisters. Man, if you don't shut your Harvard ass up.
And say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you.
Uh-oh. Middle class
went to
neighborhood.
college with you.
With you.
Understands the struggles and pain, and joy that comes from those experiences.
All right. So we get it. So he has a problem with this notion, and he says, now we all know about how titles are. Check it out for yourself. I'm going to review what the whole entire video is. I think when I saw the title last night, if I remember correctly, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I was listening to it. I saw like the beginning of this, and I may have fallen asleep for the rest. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to check it out. I don't think we have enough time to do it here. And again, I like to encourage people to go to hear it from the horse's mouth. Not only possibly, it says ABC here, right? So, excuse me. It says ABC here, so it's probably not that clear because I have it in the same kind of perspective as I have him. But check it out for yourself. Check out Jericho Green. He's very entertaining. He makes me think about things that I want to know more about, and so that's why I continue to listen to him. Okay, so I'm going to have this conversation with you all about what I had with my wife. We were talking about politics. And when I say politics, I mean she concedes that she's never been a person that's been involved in politics that much. She's never been, quote unquote, a voter or anything like that. And part of the reason why is because she never felt it would be fair to the process for her to vote on something that she wasn't aware of. So we've come to North Carolina. We both, she's from Utah. I lived in Utah for 30 years, a state that I don't think ever has voted Democratic. It's always been Republican. And so that was that. And we come here, same type of situation, but the conversation we began to talk about was how the electorate process was. Now I'm going to tell you, over the years, I've learned how it goes, and there are still some nuances about it that I'm not quite too keen on, but I have a general knowledge of how it goes. And I was describing to her how our state, amongst all of the other states, save 2, are all or nothing electorate votes. That you earn all of the electorate votes or none of them at all. And her comment to me was that, well, she felt that it should be like, let's say if it was 13-1, if the total number of votes was 14, electorate votes was 14 for a state, and one person voted Democratic and the other voted Republican, or the other way around if you wished, that she felt that the one vote should go to where it went and the other vote should go to, the other 13 should go to the Republican side. She said, well then, why do I need to vote? She's like, there's no need for me to vote. Now, for me personally, when she said that, I really wanted to kind of convince her otherwise. No, your vote is important because at the local level, you can have pockets of areas that are Democratic and then there's other ones where there's Republican and all that stuff. But she made me think of how easy it is for a process to make a person not do something. For example, we've heard of, or maybe you have not heard of, gerrymandering, whereby certain process, including like boundaries, are formulated in such a way that it discourages people from voting. And things like, for example, ID. Everybody probably says, or at least I think it's reasonable for a person for a process to know or be able to determine that the individual who is voting is the person who cast that. So if you, for example, like in North Carolina, if you do not have an ID card, they will allow you to vote, but you have to, on some level, at a different date, qualify the fact that you voted. So they have a way of trying to account for it. But the conversation that her and I had basically made me think of all of the types of things that could be made to keep a person from voting. And in her case, it's just as simple as saying, if my vote doesn't actually, if I voted a certain way and the person who I'm telling to vote, that is the elected person, doesn't vote that way, but they have some kind of process where all of their votes vote and the whole state votes this way, she's like, I don't want to be a part of that. Imagine if that's just her not being threatened or anything, but imagine if you were faced with the notion of possibly losing your life because you voted. You may just say, I'm not going to do it. So the deception to me for it all is that there are so many ways that can conveniently be put up to keep people from doing something that otherwise would benefit them. She was as compelled not to vote as I was to say, well, even my one vote, even though I know North Carolina is likely going to vote Republican, I'm still going to vote because it matters locally for me. And then eventually local actions will trickle up to the president, the presidential election. God be with our country, whoever that is. I just hope and pray that as a nation, we don't continue to do this. I say at the end of my shows normally something to the effect of, whether you be on the right side or the left side, ideologically, politically, etc., that all I care is that you meet me somewhere in the middle. And when I say that, I simply mean that if we keep going this way, we're never going to come to a meeting of the minds. But maybe if we go closer to the middle, there's some space that we both can live with and we can agree upon, and then we can continue to have some type of a conversation. Otherwise, it's problematic. We face the race wars, we face, all the different things that lead us down a path that I don't even want to go. My name is faqthemadness, otherwise known as Craig. Join me next time. Until the next time we see each other, peace.
Thank you for watching. If you have a video you'd like for us to cover, use the submit link in the description or pinned comment. If you enjoyed this one, consider subscribing and hit the bell to be notified of future content. Be sure to check out all of the other content we have for your edutainment. We will continue to respectfully exercise our First Amendment rights and publish the interactions we have with government officials. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment. It's the easiest way for you to let us know your thoughts about our channel.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some loose shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.